Hey guys. So I think there are five main playstyles that can be broken down to a lot of subcategories, like to play in League. And here are two that I think are really important to understand: playing to win versus playing to improve. I'm just going to be talking about both of them in this video. But a lot of the time, for people, they subconsciously decide which of these to go for, or they actively decide which of them to go for. And we're going to discuss the differences between these today. I did want to mention that I've been streaming a good bit over at twitch.tv/JT_lol. I'd appreciate it if you guys would go check it out. I've been doing free coaching, doing my unranked to challenger with top mid Lilia, sometimes playing on my Jace only account, sometimes playing on my other high diamond accounts, hopefully back to master soon. Really going to try to get to challenger on this Lilia account. I'm going to be playing to win, going for high win rate. I'll discuss it more in another video. I'm trying to grow my brand. That's a lot of the reason why I'm doing top mid Lilia. But yeah, like I said, that'll be for another video. So let's get to this one. Playing to win. Playing to win is a style that focuses on winning the current game. It's generally better when the win matters a ton. It involves better risk to reward ratio. So you're basically always doing low risk things because you don't want to fall behind, you don't want to die, you don't want your team to fall behind, all that sort of stuff, because you're trying to win this immediate game. Teammates are sometimes relevant with this style. The higher the elo, the more relevant they are. Like in Master Elo and up, they are often relevant because people punish each other harder, leads matter a lot more, games don't go as long, etc. This style often involves helping teammates more when necessary, and making small and medium, sometimes large sacrifices to get your team ahead. Usually you want the risk reward ratio to be equal or greater. For example, low risk with low reward, low risk with medium reward, usually avoiding medium risks, but sometimes you can take medium risk for high reward. Those types of moves or plays are usually acceptable. This playstyle also involves avoiding high risks at all costs, because why would you want to take a high risk play if your only goal is to win that game? This playstyle also involves making sacrifices, but making sacrifices in lower elo doesn't pay off as much because you can't trust teammates to use their lead properly. So, if you go and gank your top laner and you die, but your top laner gets a double kill, like you're a jungler, that may not be worth a lot of the time. Like, it looks worth, but then again, if you're relying on your low elo top laner, who knows what they're going to do with their lead? Like, they might not be able to carry, or they might carry. Sometimes they will carry. I'd say more often than not, they'll do well. They'll do well with their lead, but the only person you can really trust, especially in lower elos, is yourself. So when you're in lower elos, oftentimes you still want to be somewhat selfish. Like, you do want to help your team, don't get me wrong. It's a complicated topic, but I'm just trying to go by these bullet points for now in this video. Feel free to ask any questions that come up, any thoughts about this playstyle. We're about to get to the better playstyle, in my opinion, which is playing to improve. I think it's like the best playstyle to play League. In my opinion, obviously. So, in my opinion, playing to win is the optimal style when the win really, really matters. Such as going for a rank you've always wanted to get, like if you're in promos or if the season's getting closer to ending. Also when playing in tournaments, like elimination matches where you really need the win, challenger solo queue, and pro play. The reason why I say challenger solo queue is because at the tippity top elo, playing to win makes a lot of sense, because like if you're already there, if you're already towards the top, and you're trying to get to like rank 1 or something, your teammates are going to be more reliable. Now, they aren't always super reliable, but they're more reliable than lower elo teammates. So that's why I included challenger solo queue on this list. And obviously in pro play, you're playing to win most of the time. Sometimes teams will do different things that'll be like playing to improve. They'll try a different team comp that they're not used to, draft, that sort of stuff. So the type of people that are playing to win, obviously, like, they really want to win each individual game. Every single game matters to them a lot, and that's not a bad thing. The problem can come when you're really emotionally invested in every single game, because if you have a loss streak a few games in a row, you're going to get really torn up about it if you're only playing to win, because in your mind, you haven't gained anything. If your only goal is to win and you end up losing like 4 games, you haven't gained anything out of playing those games. Whereas if you're playing with an improvement mindset, playing to improve, then you're still going to gain a lot out of losses because you're going to be learning so much every time you play. And also the upside with playing to win is going to be being more creative and finding ways to win. Because if you're playing to improve, you might see that like you're behind and you're just thinking, oh, we're already behind, I'm just going to take some risky plays and see what happens. But if you're playing to win, you're going to try to do like a lot more calculations, and you'll try out some like interesting ganks, or you'll go to an objective you normally wouldn't have gone to. Things like that will happen when you're playing to win. So oftentimes you end up being more creative. So that's a good upside. Now, let's look at my personal favorite playstyle in League of Legends, playing to improve. I mean, it's on my YouTube like banner thing, play to improve, you know. This is a style that focuses on becoming a better player overall. And this is a style that I think like everyone should use in solo queue. It's so underused in my opinion, or at least like from my experience, what I've seen in solo queue, like 90% of people are just playing to win. And that's how a lot of people end up getting stuck, I feel like, because they're so focused on just winning one individual game. Like they're not worried about the long run. They're only worried about this single game, and then that single game turns into like thousands, and then they're still sort of stuck in the same elo. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not like League is some sort of like simple math equation where you can figure out some secret trick and then you can get it right every time. League isn't like that at all. But there are guidelines to follow, and there's a lot of context to take in within the game. And if you play to improve, you can just grow your skill set so much, where if you play to win, a lot of the time you're limiting yourself and how much you're actually getting better at the game. So let's look at some of these bullet points. This is a style that I would recommend for everyone who wants to become the best player they can be. It's got a more flexible risk to reward ratio, so you're taking risks more often, but you're generally avoiding high risk, low reward scenarios. This is something that is true for like every good playstyle in League of Legends, I think. Pretty much every time you're going to want to avoid high risk for low reward scenarios, because you don't want to like train yourself to be in that situation where you're taking a high risk, low reward, where it's paid off for you in the past. Like this, I think this is one of the dangers of smurfing a lot for people. If they smurf and they take a high risk, they're probably not going to get as punished as hard for it if they were playing in their, like normal elo or whatever, because like people just aren't as good in low relos and that sort of stuff. So you get into bad habits if you're doing high risk, low reward plays. So avoid those even if you're playing to improve. Those are the types of things that happen when you're playing on tilt, which will be discussed in another video. Stay away from high risk, low reward, always. Unless you're like super limit testing for some reason, like maybe, I don't want to say always. There could be some specific scenario where you want to do it, but that's for another video. So teammates are completely irrelevant in solo queue with this style. That means like if you're in the like full playing to improve mindset and you're like completely detached from winning or losing the game, you don't care about the outcome of the game, because that's like generally going to be the optimum way to feel when you're playing to improve. And some people may see that as a bad thing, like you don't care about winning. It's not that you don't care. It's that like you're focusing more on improving than you are on winning that individual game. You're still trying to win. Of course, you're still trying to win. But like with this style, you would rather lose a game where you learned like 10 things than win a game where you only learned one thing. You would rather have a close game than a stomp. And even in stomps, you can still learn something, but I'm just kind of trying to give you some of my thoughts on what it looks like to like play to improve. For most people, this isn't going to be true. Teammates will feel somewhat relevant, especially if you get on a loss streak. It can get frustrating. We're not machines. We're human, and I'd say like 99% of us can't really fully detach ourselves from like the game. It's going to feel bad if you lose a lot of games in a row. Most of the time, it feels bad for me. And I feel like I'm generally pretty good about detaching myself from like the outcome of the game. So Playing to improve often involves being selfish, but not overly selfish. So you want to get yourself ahead. You want to like focus on yourself, do the plays that you think are right. You want to make the calls. You want to communicate what you think is best, etc. You want to be selfish. But you don't want to like not help your jungler because you would have missed one CS on the roam or something. You know, you should still do little sacrifices. So that's all I'll say on that, because I don't want to overtalk this point. You want to be self-sufficient when you're playing to improve, such as staying even with your opponent, even when you've been ganked to 10. This is a huge thing. Because especially, I feel like in, you know, like I'm not going to name any names, but in a lot of streamers, broadcasts that I see, a lot of the time they're so focused on blaming others, because a lot of streamers end up in the mindset of playing to win. That's their mentality, because losing feels even worse on stream. Like, it feels bad off stream. It feels bad when nobody's watching you, except, you know, the people in the game, like your teammates. But when like hundreds or like thousands of people are watching you and you're losing, that feels even worse. So a lot of streamers just end up getting into the play to win mindset. It's really hard not to fall into the play to win mindset. And that's why they end up like blaming others so much. And you know, this is just my theory. Like, I don't know that this is true for everyone. This is just my theory. And I know it's happened to me before, even in like different games back when I played Hearthstone. I would play to win a lot of the time because I didn't want to feel the shame of losing in front of so many people. So, being self-sufficient is really, really good. If you can get ganked a bunch and then still stay even with your opponent, or get ahead, or like kill them 1v2, that's amazing. If you can do that consistently, you're going to be climbing. Even if you have a loss streak, you know, for a little while because of some difficult games, it'll happen. Everyone has loss streaks. Even if they play really well, it happens. Another thing you'll probably do if you're playing to improve, this isn't necessarily required, but it is one of the things that'll happen, is you experiment with other builds and room pages to get a better understanding of the game as a whole. Yeah, and I would recommend this to a lot of people. You don't want to stray too far from what seems good. Like, you don't want to say like, hey, how about press the attack Janna? That sounds good. Like, clearly, I mean, like, there's going to be better options for Janna. And if you really feel like you want to try something like that seems crazy, try it in like a bot game first or something. You know, like, I mean, because you're going to feel really bad and your teammates are going to feel really bad. You know, like, obviously I was talking about being detached from your games, but if it's stuff like that, that's like, you know, just sort of crazy out there thing, I wouldn't recommend doing that in ranked straight away. Maybe you can test it. Maybe you can start to feel like it's good. And then if it's working for you, sure, play it in ranked, see how it goes. And, you know, if you feel like you're improving, if you are actually improving, then more power to you. Go for it. But, you know, this is more along the lines of something like Hail of Blades Echo. I personally think Hail of Blades is really underused on Echo. I think there's a lot of lanes and matchups where it's good for him. But not a whole lot of people use it. So that's just another point that I thought of. In my opinion, this is the optimal style in solo queue below Challenger. So like if you aren't Challenger yet, you know, and you're trying to get there, you should be playing to improve. You might end up falling a little bit, like in the short run. I talk about this down here. We'll get to that in a sec. So the people who are playing to improve want to win each game, yes, but the overall focus is more on improvement. You just want to get better at the game. The downside is going to be winning less in the short run. So like you might have a few losses here and there because you're sort of like limit testing different matchups. You know, you don't want to embody that meme of like, I'm limit testing, and then you go in 1v5. You generally don't want to do that unless you really think you can 1v5, and then maybe you just mess up one like mechanical thing, and then like your teammates flame you and stuff. You can say to yourself, sure, they're flaming me, they think I'm dumb for going in 1v5, but I could have actually won that if I did this differently, or if I had checked if like the enemy Wukong ulted, if I had paid attention, things like that. The upside is massive, because if you play League for a long time, you're going to be winning more and becoming more skilled in the long run. The payoff is huge. I mean, for me, I reached Grandmaster and almost got to Challenger. Like this season, I'm hoping to hit Challenger. We'll see if I make it. But yeah, I've like studied this game a lot. Love this game. Really passionate about League. I hope this video has been helpful for you guys. I'm going to discuss the other 3 playstyles in other videos. And feel free to leave any questions in the comments. Have a great day.